Primary speaker, please wear that. If you have two speakers, just kind of speak closely.
She's just my tech support. Or how do you put this on?
Either around the ears or around the neck like that.
So kind of like
Just kind of have that microphone in this general area.
like this.
Yeah.
Okay. I also have an activity with this one. We'll try. Yeah, literally last year this clicker exploded. All right. Yeah, so I'll just tell you next slide. But I still have laser pointer. The last thing is juice boxes for the winners. That for anybody else. I've got the whiteboard markers here, and these worksheets. I'll have you help me set up groups. We're gonna do 3 groups. Okay, we're gonna do 3 groups because there's just enough people. And I've got the whiteboard mark. Actually, I don't want this hanging on my belt. Okay, it's stuck. I'll give it to you once we start. All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for one last session here. I'll try to make it as worth of your time as possible. So without further ado, I'm Bridger. I'll be your main presenter. And this is Leah, my tech support, and also giver out of treats for answering questions. All right. So without further ado, welcome to Know the Game. Why is it important to build a robot that can only do the challenges, but also win matches? All right, so a little bit of what we'll be doing today, a little bit of introduction, and kind of what inspired this slideshow, and then we'll work on understanding and then applying what we learned today in a little head-on-head activity with some prizes at the end for the best team. All right, so before we get rolling here, I'm kind of interested. What was your favorite FRC game, and why was that? Was it part strategy, or was it part of the game, etc.? Nice catch. What else we got out in the crowd? Fair enough. Those are not very aerodynamic. All right, let's go maroon shirt. Congratulations on that. Let's do one more, all the way in the back corner. Okay, we'll try to throw this a little better as we go here. We're still warming up. But as you can see, there's a lot of different points to the games, and there's a lot of different reasons to really like each game, or maybe even dislike the way the games are built. It all comes down to a lot about the strategies and whatnot. So let's break that down. So really, the biggest, one of the biggest examples of why knowing the game is so important would be Team 71. Doesn't seem like we have the audio, but really the kind of prefaces of this video would be how their team understood the game. They literally broke down the game pretty much when it came out and found a way that if they completed the mission of grabbing all 3 goals, which was an idea most teams kind of fantasized but gave up on, they could practically win every match without being contested. So quoting their main mentor from 2002, you got to know the game. We can kind of skip over the montage since we don't have the audio, so go ahead. All right, so breaking down games, right? You get that live stream that shows you this cool CAD model of a game and some funny little animation, but what does it all really mean? Well, the big categories really break down into 3, maybe 4 tropes. First off, shooter games. This is probably the one we're most familiar with because it's the most amplified in most of the FRC games, but it's any game where you're shooting any game component probably more than 4 feet into the air or over a distance to try to score. Then the second most prevalent would be pick-and-place games. Pick-and-place games, of course, are any game where you're probably racing across the field to go get a game component and then place it on any post or in certain shelving areas to get points. And then a slightly less prevalent one, but still kind of considered one of the main 3 types, are stacker games. There have only been 2 real stacker games in our First Robotics history, one being, yes, 2015, but they did pull it off more successfully in 2002 if you are one of the 2015 haters in the crowd. There also are terrain games. Terrain games only really having one example in First Robotics history being 2016. Yes, the Robonauts got a little goofy that year. Robots, of course, in terrain games actually are scoring points through their actual physical ability to run through open doors or conquer other terrain pieces. Yet again, you may know the 2009 game Lunacy, where the floor was just an ice level. If any of you have ever tried to play a Mario ice level, imagine that, but with your 120-pound robot. So today we'll really be focusing on these 2 types of games, maybe a little hot mention of stackers, but this will be our main focus, the 2 most prevalent. All right, so we'll be using Reefscape, as you're probably all mostly familiar with the game, and my team's robot, Team 3313 from Alexandria, Tidal Wave. So Reefscape is a pretty full game. There's a lot of different components in it. There was the source, the reef, the barge, the cages, the processor, AMP, and then the game pieces and the ground game pieces. We'll talk about more of these guys later. But let's start with probably the most important part of an FRC game to understand, the field. So this year's field was a little different than other FRC games, of course, because there were 2 distinct sides. And this is where the probably first big question that most teams have comes up. What about the defense? It's kind of similar to, yet again, one game we shall not say. But this year, there was one important thing to remember. Even though you could only have 1 robot playing defense, which is kind of the norm for a match, there were no protected zones for sources. This is the one kind of saving grace that a lot of defense teams started to pick up on. Now, when you're dividing your alliance, one major part you want to remember and kind of start deciding on when you're kind of bringing together strategy for a season is what kind of role you want to play. And defense is great, and we've all probably done defense when the robot breaks or if we're a younger team that needs just that extra push. But there's also a way to play defense a bit more strategically, and what I usually call a spy or a sabotage bot. This year, there were also a lot of unprotected game pieces. I think a lot of us kind of saw some teams using algae stealing. Shout out to teams like Toolcats, probably a local known legend that had an autonomous that was able to steal that algae. But this opened up just a few more ways to score if you were maybe playing a partial defensive role. So if you have that 1 robot now playing defense and you want to focus on being one of the main cycle bots for a season, that opens up kind of 2 possibilities. Usually with this year, you would split up the reef. With that, you would kind of connect one of the 2 sources to a side. One of the major parts to kind of think about with your team is if you have the capabilities to do limelight, you might focus on these harder to reach areas in the back versus teams that prefer driver skill, which focus more on the front. But yet again, if you're planning for that defensive action, which most matches would have some level of, you would be able to adapt with your robot coming to the other source. So moving on, the next probably biggest part besides the field to a game is what you're actually manipulating. And that would come down to your game pieces. This year we had pretty much an infinite source, 2 game pieces, and a really weird ground game piece. Most games have these ground game pieces. sorry, English is hard, but most games have this ground game piece. This year, though, since there were 2 game pieces, they chose to go a little funky and stack them on each other. We'll cover more of how that kind of creates some challenges later, but that's not usual. So our team specifically, we as 3313, we chose to focus on something. Instead of being an every bot where we try to complete every task, we made sure to focus in down on one thing, and that was Coral. So we, at the start of the year, decided we wanted to be Coral only. We weren't going to go manipulate Algae. We weren't going to be that sabotage bot, and we would play defense only if we needed to. So we went with the trough intake that a lot of teams did this year. With a trough intake, that allowed us to get the autonomous that we had been working on really smooth and really repeatable compared to using a ground intake. So on the other hand, with ground intakes, and yes, I'm using full metal jackets. Thank you guys for being our partners at NMRC. They used a ground intake that allowed them to, pick up the really odd game piece this year from the ground, but that also, with the specific design they used, they were able to, in autonomous, pick up this coral piece that was under an algae ball. So the next part, always circling back to that defensive aspect, you have matches where you're going to have someone shutting down your source. And from insider knowledge, because we were strategizing with them, there was talk of a way you could shut down defense on your source. That's flooding the area with the game piece. That way, your opponent that is trying to shut down a source with their full-bodied robot is just making a mess of the game pieces and probably pushing them closer to make cycle time shorter. Along with flooding the field, if you have a good human player, they can tend to chuck out that game piece more. That's where you start strategizing with how you want your human player to act in a match. As with a ground intake, that may have been slower than one that was intaking from the source to be as repeatable. They could get the game pieces out shorter to compensate for that so they could have shorter cycle times. The only downside with this, and this is somewhat rare in this game but has been seen in other games, is if other teams have ground intakes and playing that sabotage role, they can just come and steal your game pieces. So we've talked a lot about Coral and kind of focusing on that. What if you're a team that wants to be a little different, or you want to fill a different kind of niche, or you're going to build every bot that can do everything? You got secondary missions. This year was a really prevalent secondary mission, Algae. So deciding where you want Algae to go, do you want it to go in the barge, or do you want it to go into the sort? Do you want it to go in the processor? Now, there's a lot of reasons why you might choose one or the other. There might be build limitations, or your team might have just a really good idea on how to manipulate one. But when breaking down the game into its core numbers, it comes down to ranking points. Now, this year, there were a good amount of ranking points. You could kind of focus in on which ones you wanted to. But if you wanted to make sure you got certain ranking points, you might want to focus Algae in certain spots, so you might build your robot in certain ways. This year, if you wanted to get that cooperation-based reef ranking point, you would definitely focus in on the processor. Now, on the other hand, as we probably all learned the hard way, or predicted if you broke down the game pretty well, more of the ranking points came from what won more matches, being the barge, or being that kind of match decider. So with secondary missions, it kind of comes down to your focus. Do you want to focus on a secondary mission like Algae, or do you want to focus in on the main mission of Coral? Or are you going to be a team that can put it all together and be a combination of both, hopefully not being detrimental to one option or the other? And now probably the burning question everybody has for each game reveal: what's the end game going to be? Like I said, Reefscape's a pretty full game, so they definitely gave us some options in end game too. You could go with a high climb, a low climb, or a park. Those were your 3 main options in endgame, but you could also, of course, skip it all entirely. personally, when you're designing your strategy for the season before you start designing your robot, I would usually just say to take into the end game. That usually kind of leads to a lot of people looking at your robot. Can you complete this end game? Can you get this ranking point with us? Especially this year with that barge ranking point. Other years you might want to usually have some version of an end game. Even if it's a high climb, still having that end game option makes you pretty applicable to team strategies. The only time I would say to skip an end game would be if you have a confident idea that you can keep cycling game pieces to maybe eke out a match. But I wouldn't put that into your design strategy for a season. So like I said, it comes down to your ranking points. So kind of summing it up, you've got 3.5 Fs. You've got your field. You want to understand the field's intricacies, have offensive and defensive paths, and look to a similar past games for meta kind of defining options. If it's a shooting game, you're going to look for other games that use shooting elements. This game, you're going to look for pick and place history. Your second F is focus. What do you really want to focus on? Our team, we focused on coral. Other teams, they focused on algae, and even then, you can have teams that focus on everything and do it really well, and other teams can focus on everything and not do it all so well. So it really comes down to what are your team's limitations or strategies before you start designing a robot around that strategy. And then finally, there's the final. You want to dissect the end game, know all your options, and then yet again have those defensive and offensive plans. Do you want to have a robot that's going to be able to climb really fast so then you can cycle more? Or do you want to have a really consistent climb or end game balance, which then can usually sacrifice cycle times? And then finally, you've got the other. That's kind of like the half F. Really, it's just kind of what are the X factors. In 2024, you couldn't have any gaps in your bumper, so you really had two options on how you wanted to manipulate the game piece, either under or over bumper. Otherwise, you could have other limitations that come from the rulebook changing each year, especially a hot topic this year being bumper regulations. But it's pretty much what's your robot's real estate and what changes in between years. So before we get on to that activity, and you can click it one more time so you don't have to watch the eye bleed of some more GIFs, do you have any questions before we get into a bit of an team activity? I don't bite. I hope I did. All right. So yeah, I had already printed them and laminated them before I caught a few spelling mistakes. I do apologize for that on these sheets you'll be working on. But with the time we have, I'll start with 10 minutes, and then we can kind of push it there if teams need more time. But we're going to split up into 3 groups so you can kind of intermingle, meet some other teams. And using what we learned kind of from the slideshow, I have some laminated sheets so you can kind of break down a game of your choosing from FRC history. Yes, I have it memorized, so I can help you out with that. And kind of present to see who can design the better robot. And I've got a few little prizes for the best team. All right. So, like I said, we'll be either working with shooter or pick and place games. These two are just too out there to really do in this shorter time frame. So if you want to, can you go back one? If you want to now kind of divide up into 3 groups, kind of try to be a little even, and we'll then let teams kind of pick their games. Yeah, that'll probably work better. We'll have this third of the room. If you want to go with your team, so you're not cut off from that. Yeah, that actually probably worked better dividing it this way. So if these 2 rows want to be a team, if these, yeah. If these 2, and then kind of this whole back cluster. Record your group's work. Okay. So I'll get some. Do you guys want to be you guys get first dibs. You want to be red alliance, blue alliance, or green alliance? Red whiteboard marker it is. Also, while I'm going around, here's a pre-filled out sheet. If you want to pass that around real quick. Here will be your guys' worksheet. Do you guys want to be the green alliance or the blue alliance? I'm hearing some green. There's a filled out worksheet that they'll when you guys are done when you guys are done looking at that one, send that one back to the group behind you. Thank you. Okay, you guys get the secret fourth option. Do you want to be the blue alliance or the black alliance? All right, that'll make reading your worksheet easier. So I have a pre-filled worksheet coming around, kind of a demonstration of one game. That one will be yours, so I'll also give you guys the magical eraser marker. But you guys get to just quick erase the third sheet. I didn't think I would actually have this many people sign up for my class. All right. So it looks like we have teams kind of put together here. So starting in the front, what category of game do you want to play? Shooter or pick and place? All right. So here are your shooter game options going all the way back to 2004. Crescendo it is. All right. For other teams, Crescendo is now off the board. Middle group, are you feeling pick and place or shooter? All right. So 2024 is off the board. What game do you guys want to try? Also, feel free to use your phones to look up the game reveals, so like you don't have to dig through your memories on. Rapid React, good choice. All right, and finally, back group. What are you guys feeling? Pick and place or shooter? I hear one for pick and place. You guys also want to do shooter? All right. So the bottom two are off the board. What are you guys feeling? I'm hearing Steamworks. All right. So we have 2017, 24, and 22. So if you want to like click forward a few. You guys will have 10 minutes, and we'll up that time probably. 10 minutes is probably a little short, but can I have the example sheet? Thank you. I'll let you guys add it, and I'll check back in once the timer kind of hits like 5 minutes. Have at thee. So for you guys, I need to get this sheet to group 3 because this is their worksheet, but this one is kind of just a filled out example if you want to run it through your group just real fast. Bronson, it kind of looks like you abandoned your group. How do you feel?
I prefer the presentation.
Dude's just a camera in the crowd. Actually, I have my water bottle over there. What am I doing?
Should I keep recording stuff?
If you want to maybe pause it and come back at the 5 minute mark, that'd probably be good.
kind of weird.
How was that?
Good. I still don't know what you want me to do with like the judging part, but you know.
So really just kind of like which team gives me the best pitch.
Oh, okay.
So we'll do a panel of 3, so like tiebreakers.
I don't want that one.
Not just you.
I'm fine doing that too.
I just got done teaching the class on failure. Our class on failure was sponsored by.
Oh no.
Oh.
I mean, admittedly, it's probably the game that actually got me into FIRST Robotics, so I can't hate on it too much. Also, admittedly, if we want to talk a little conspiracy theory, I have a feeling this year's gonna be a stacking game.
That's the first one.
The game with them, those big square boxes, or yellow box things on the screen.
Charged Up 2018.
Whatever it was called. What a great game for spectators.
Supposed to be closer to me.
You can sit back, you can see what's going on, you see the scale, like, oh, it's going to go. You don't have to explain the game. You can see what's going on.
Yeah.
And just a game like that, from an audience perspective, is kind of neat. Very visual, you know. Sometimes you're trying to stack something or put something, and you're trying to think, did they get one on the thing? You can't really see.
And if memory serves me too, that was because the game scored by seconds, it got really high points. So like people really would get hyped when those numbers would like break 500 or around that.
I can't remember what it's called.
2018 Charged Up, or no, yeah, Power Up, because it was the video game one. Yeah, I get Charged Up and Power Up mixed up.
Those yellow square box things. I can never remember the name of the games.
I turned all the games into a board game, so I have like the entire history memorized.
Actually, I can tell you these ones that aren't here.
All right, tell me Zone Zeal.
No, I'm telling you, I can name the games that aren't here. So I can give you like 2 off the top of my head.
Yeah, none of those are actually on here.
I can give you Reefscape, and I can give you Crescendo.
Yeah, these are all the classic style posters FIRST Robotics would do.
I like that one.
2007 Rack and Roll. That was a fun game to watch online. Admittedly, I say it like I was there.
Is there a FIRST Robotics YouTube video that Bridger has not watched? That's the real question.
I'm not. I'm working on it though. I'm working on it. No, I'm not. Looks about like there's about 5 minutes left on the clock. How are teams feeling? Red Alliance. Green Alliance. How you guys feeling? And how are you guys feeling?
Yeah, 2025 World Studio. FIRST Robotics sweatshirts that I made.
It's a heavy duty HDMI cable.
Is that like your version of talking about the weather?
Ultimate
Is that
power.
like your version of talking about the weather?
Wow. Very helpful.
Work with your
You're not
groove.
paying a prize.
Okay, I got it. That marching band shake was pretty nice.
Kill me, just kill me.
You want to hear about my other team?
We have marching band, we have also First Nerd, and then we have HDMI cords.
Y'all won't have to have a charge for the power pack.
Okay, I'm sorry. HDMI is a scam.
What?
HDMI is a big corporate
It
scam.
literally is, bro.
Mhm.
Everyone just use DisplayPort.
Yes. We're actually doing a display port unit in our computer tech class.
I have to take a computer skills class at some point. AA degrees or scams?
Shoot, Leo.
If I make it through chemistry, I'll be good to go. That's all I need to do. Just make it through.
Turning on
It's the fundamentals
appendicitis.
of chemistry too. It's like much easier, and I'm actually a good professor. I just hate chemistry. I don't pay attention.
AP chemistry class.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, most of my classes they don't care. Like you might see my phone, but like my math teacher the other day, she's like, just one of the people in the back, she's like, bring your phone up here. I was like, oh my god, what are we in middle school?
Yes, you are.
Every test I had in AP chemistry, I was like, I should probably just jump out that window.
Actually, I love that about just going to chemistry in general. I hate chemistry. I want to take physics.
Doyle is horrible because for the labs too, you have to finish it by the next class when you're in the lab.
Doyle was supposed to be watching our class, and I don't think he was. What does he look like?
I've never had Doyle.
Was he some
evil.
bald
Is he bald?
He's not quite. He's short.
He's
Then
shaggy.
no, it wasn't him. I didn't think it was. But
All right, Bronson. Pop quiz. As a friend that worked with me on the first history breakdown, what team started in Rug Rage that is now one of the most prolific teams in first history? What team was started during the Rug Rage season that is now one of the most prolific teams? Cheesy actually started in Zone Zeal. Or no, sorry. They started in Cooperations. It was the Robo Wranglers. Also, don't worry, I'm asking these guys it.
What number is Robo Reagan?
Like to 125
I was thinking
or
Wild
124. Sorry.
Stags.
Yeah, 111 Wild Stags.
Did they start the year too?
No, they were a founding member. They started in Maze Craze, 1992, the Corn Game. Hear me out. 2027 Grits Blitz.
And you have to drive on sand.
Oh no, just a pit of sand.
oh, I was
Auger
thinking,
Drive, Auger Swerve.
to add to Gonner's Secret Santa, you should do a quarter so you can check his tread.
Oh, that's mean. I like that.
How do you even get a gym crash?
He just hit a really bad ice cat. So it was that day where we
Yeah,
like.
I saw his crash. I just didn't notice him until I said so.
Yeah, he just hit the windy part in between where like there's no trees. It's just the wind tunnel ice formed and.
Yeah, that's why I waited that day until I could leave.
Yeah, same. But he has an open block, so he always leaves an hour early.
So his bonus.
We've hit end game of designing your robots. You got 30 seconds left, unless all teams need like a good amount more time.
Yeah, I have a full day on.
We end at like
3 days,
3:15,
I only got
right? Okay.
class, so I'm Cardinal fans.
Why is Bronson taking up your computer right now, Leo?
I don't know. He just like keeps stepping this way.
You should let me hide behind you when Brittany does like a little speech thing.
You can have to have me anytime.
Wait, that's... Oh, I am. What was the Bridger quote? Small one.
All right. Just to get a read of the room, how are our teams coming with their kind of design strategies? You guys are done. How about the middle team? You and the back. Do you guys all want like another, let's say, like 5 minutes? All right. Can you back that up? Yeah. Perfect.
So why am I presenting this thing?
Remember last time we did we're just like, yeah, you can just read off the slideshow. I'm like reading it, and my eyes wander over Gunner, and he's like, great.
Nice, you're just trying to replace Jim.
Yes, please.
Roast other song.
No, I know you guys do.
So, back to you guys, how many people do you think we can execute on the team by running them at the
would just be me because I'm a redhead.
No, actually, we're taking you.
No, you're gonna be the twin.
Yeah, you.
Okay, just wait for a second. Leah, what are we doing? Bronson, how's it going? Are you enjoying this? I'm the one actually presenting.
I was texting her.
Would you want to make a cameo in our we're doing like a little vlog for the day. Okay.
Anyways, we're on stage.
I don't think we can be talking about this, you know. So are you with CIS?
Should be enough clues.
Oh, yeah. I gotta say, this whole show you put on, I've enjoyed presenting, well, I guess for the past year and now like 2, but
Jumpstart.
yeah, this is probably one of my favorite things we do in First Robotics.
It's growing quite large, and yeah, we're happy to share our child with everybody. I suppose so you want to call it. At our height, you've been around for a few years.
Yeah, I've been in First Robotics for going on 8 years now. I started in Alexandria 3313. I started on our FLL team back in 2019, so this is my 3rd year with the high school team. But no, I've loved just competitive robotics that isn't just smashing them apart.
At its height, Jumpstart ST Cloud was at 1,000 to 1,200 students and mentors. We've scaled that back now because we have Jumpstart Medtronic down the city, Jumpstart Fargo. Those teams that would normally have come here have their own Jumpstarts right now. This is actually going out to Fargo. Fargo's bringing in streams here. And then Nebraska's watching our streams this weekend. They're going to do Jumpstart next year. But Medtronic,
That's awesome.
yeah, and now I wasn't always with Becker. I was originally with Grand City Gears and St. Cloud before the team disbanded.
Okay. There's no official kind of score. We're just kind of playing by vibes here.